I'll call the annual organizational board meeting to order. This is the time and the place for that meeting to take place. Welcome to all of you who are with us this evening, and welcome to the individuals who will be observing us and watching our meeting on delayed broadcast. Allow me to introduce the people at the table with me. From my right, we have Janelle Carter and Mike Miller. From the left, we have Karina Hernandez, Sean Heitman, Ben Fletcher. At the center table with me, to my right, is Paulette Newbold. She is the board secretary. To my left is Dr. Theron Schutte, the superintendent of schools, and I'm B. Niblock. We have a pink sheet on the speaker's table for you to sign up if you would like to address the board during public comments. You will be given 5 minutes to speak, and according to board policy, the board will not be able to respond to your comments, but we thank you for your comments. Please read with me the mission statement of the Marshalltown Community School District. That's right. Well, it's up there now too. And it's behind you. We develop learners who have the knowledge, skills, and positive mindset to successfully pursue a meaningful future through personalized learning experiences. And stand as you're able and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes. Carter. Yes. Fletcher.
Here.
Heitman.
Here.
Hernandez.
Here.
Niblock.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
There are not.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Miller, Fletcher, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, the same.
This is a bit of a bittersweet moment to have Mr. Harris, Mr. Fletcher, and Mrs. Carter come forward. So on behalf of myself, and I know I speak on behalf of our entire board and community, school community, I've greatly appreciated having the opportunity to work with you and board superintendent leadership.
Now that you've said that, would you turn them so that you're facing the camera?
Thank you. I think the amount of positive synergy and positive growth and accomplishments over the course of the last 3 to 4 years have been amazing, obviously very invigorating for all of us, and that can't happen without a strong board superintendent team. You guys were a huge part of that. So I've got some small tokens of our appreciation. I've got a plaque for each of you for your service. Thank you. And Ross, it's great to have you back. Thank you. And also a lifetime pass for Bobcat activities. Thank you. Thank you. And a handshake. Thank you very much. Thanks very much. This way.
Ready? There'll be a flash here.
You're welcome to say a few words if you'd like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking at the consent agenda, are there any questions, changes, corrections for the minutes of November 4th from anyone? Are there any items of note in personnel?
No, ma'am.
Looking at interagency agreements and contracts, we have one with Iowa Valley Continuing Ed for the use of DeJardin Hall. We have cancellations of 13 different registrations with Solution Tree purchase agreements. And we have an agreement to establish and operate an alternative options education program with Iowa Net High Academy. Are there any questions about those? Then we have all of the open enrollment contracts for special education students. Questions? We have one out and one in for open enrollments. Are there any items of note on the bills?
There are not.
Any questions? We have a donation in memory of MCSD alumni John Coons in the amount of $2,400 towards Marshalltown High School vocal music. Any questions on the financial report? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Carter Fletcher? Heitman?
Sure.
We're gonna have to separate. Oh, well.
Well, it's not gonna be a problem. We'll do that next meeting.
Yeah. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The motion carries 6-0. Is there anybody on the,
No, there.
Is there? Oh, sorry, I can't see. Oh.
those old, or this,
New.
this is new, okay. We have some MEA reps. And would you please introduce yourselves to?
I'm Alex Klein.
I'm Anita Rainberg.
I'm Naomi Musel.
We mainly came tonight just because we wanted to say welcome to the new board members and just to say that we look forward to working with our new school board and Dr. Schutte in the future.
In addition, thank you to those that are exiting their terms. We appreciate that you've worked hard on our behalf as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gosling. Or you can each have, they both work.
So, good evening, I'm here for the annual update around Marshalltown Learning Academy. Marshalltown Learning Academy personifies the district mission statement, and that we do work diligently to provide those personalized learning experiences to give our students a meaningful future. It's the forefront of our work every day. Just as overview, for those who aren't familiar necessarily with Marshalltown Learning Academy, we're an at-risk, non-conventional learning program. We serve students currently in grades 9 through 12. We serve over 100 kids. We have 4.25 core teachers, which includes math, science, English language arts, social studies, and physical education. To my left is Nicole Critchfield, who is our 1.0 FTE business careers, work-based learning, and electives teacher. We have 1.75 FTE in special education and a 0.375 ALL teacher, along with the secretary and an administrator. Features of MLA. We have online and blended learning for the most part. So it's a personalized learning format. So the semester is defined by a set of standards to be mastered and not as a function of time. So a semester course would be the amount of work necessarily to get a semester of credit. It may take longer or shorter than a traditional semester of time, but that body of work defines when that work is done. So we then do apply mastery learning to those sort of situations. So our grading scale is A, B, C, or not yet. So students have to turn in proficient work in order to demonstrate proficiency to standards, which is how they complete a course. We use the same credit requirements and graduation requirements as Marshalltown High School. Students in our program do earn a Marshalltown Community School District diploma. Our students are eligible for any or all activities at MHS, and we do have students who participate in a variety of events, from music to athletics to clubs and various things. Not necessarily in high numbers, but enough that it makes a difference for some of those students. Our blended learning, which I'll talk about more later, provides flexibility and access to content on demand. We have, over the past 3 years, really moved deeply into work-based learning as a building-wide initiative. We implemented this year some new industry credentials. So our most recent additions would be a CPR AED first aid credential and a commercial driver's license credential in partnership with Iowa Valley Continuing Ed. And even some of these simple things really help with kids as they transition to jobs and apply for jobs, even at this level. Nicole mentioned some other credentialing opportunities that we have as well. But these are our most recent additions. These help our kids become more employable at the next level in post-high school. We are building apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. We are working on a mechanical fabrication pre-apprenticeship right now. We have a nurse aide apprenticeship in place and a meat cutting apprenticeship in place. Our students have access to dual credit and CTE dual credit courses at the community college, just like their peers at the high school. We also have STEM Innovator certified instructors and one Biz Innovator certified instructor. So we have a lot going on in a variety of areas to make the school day more enriching for those students. So as far as our blended learning, I think one of our tenets in our building is learning is a constant and time is the instructional variable. So however long it takes a student to master first semester chemistry is how long it takes them to master first semester chemistry. Some kids come in with prior knowledge, other kids don't, but at the end of that course, all students can then meet the standards of that course. And Benjamin Bloom, who created Bloom's taxonomy, which some of you may be familiar with, said this as long ago as 1967. It says that 95% of students with the right amount of support and the right amount of time can earn an A in most high school classes under appropriate conditions. And those are the conditions we're trying to create down at MLA, and altering the variable of time is one of those major conditions that can help students learn at a higher level. So blended learning, and at the end of these, there's a bunch of linkable slides which will give you some more information about that. In a blended learning program, at least part of the learning is done online with some element of control over time, place, path, and pace. We know that at least 90% of students need the support of a supervised brick and mortar school to be successful in this kind of an environment. So we don't go all online. We haven't found that that's been, without support, that that's particularly effective. But a blended learning model allows students to access content as they need it and allows us to personalize the experience a little more. So the conversations with our kids sometimes center around pacing through courses. So self-paced doesn't mean no pace. And some of our students, we need to continue to counsel and cajole to maintain a pace to meet those 4-year or 5-year graduation outcomes, whatever goals those students have. So that's part of how we use blended learning in that situation. Nicole's going to talk to you a little bit about some of our work-based learning initiatives and some of the work going on there.
So yeah, I am Nicole Critchfield, and I do a lot of the non-core figuring out for students, which does include the work-based learning. 3 years ago, we applied for and were granted the STEM Best grant money. With that, it allowed us to communicate quite a bit with community businesses and the college. One of the things we learned from this communication with them was that a lot of people coming to both the college and to businesses don't have any experience with tools. We are getting to a time where we don't have as many families at home working on the farm, fixing their own cars and that kind of thing. And in fact, statistic we learned at MCC just today in the gas pipeline class instructor came and he said that only 70% of his students this year knew how to read a tape measure when they got there. And 50% of them knew what to do with a wrench or what the wrench was called. So one of those things led to our mechanical fabrication, which you can see on your slide. I've got a couple students, one of those just finished that entire program, the guy standing up in white there. And what it does is it teaches the basics of tools, how to use them, what they're used for, and how to use them safely. At MLA, we don't have a shop class. I don't have room for that, and I don't have all the tools for that. So this is one way we are able to offer that experience for our students and keep them active and getting some skills as well. Along with that, other work-based opportunities that we've had, we of course do a lot of the job shadows, just like at MHS. Eric mentioned a few of the apprenticeships that are kind of new this year. There's a pre-apprenticeship that we're also working on with the local masonry, the BAC union, to create a pre-apprenticeship for masonry as well. Other things, Serve Safe, we're offering that credential as well. As many times as we can get kids out either into the college to take classes or out into the community to have experiences, that's what we're looking for our students to do. Okay. So, work-based learning, mostly what we're looking at right now is our mid-skilled jobs. These are the ones that we're finding we don't have enough employees for right now out in the workplace. Businesses are telling us, data from national companies are telling us this. We just don't have enough plumbers, electricians, the people that are gonna come and fix stuff for us. So 53% of those jobs, the new job openings, are the ones in those areas. This is an older population of workers that we have right now. They're going to be retiring really soon, and we're not going to have enough people to do those things for us. So work-based learning helps with those skills. The Work-Based Learning Clearinghouse is something that was created as part of the Future Ready Iowa initiative that the governor has come out with. The clearinghouse is made up of projects that people across the state have created. So businesses across the state have created these projects. And then they put them out on the clearinghouse for any school to bid on. And the school, any grade level, well, not any grade level, there's projects for different grade levels. And there's also projects that can be done, there could be a project where a business in Northwest Iowa has something and they are willing to do that online and never have to actually meet face to face. So that's different opportunities for us. If there's some kind of industry we don't have here, we can use those. We are working, right now our PLC for our school is working at incorporating some of those clearinghouse activities. We are looking at doing one along with the State Patrol on measuring skid distance. So how the force ratio for when you slam on your brakes and how far you go. So there's some science and math incorporation. Also looking at butterfly garden project as well. So looking more into those. We're also hoping to work with some of our businesses here in the community to get some of those really local ones going.
So as we do this work and we're trying to create, we're trying to upscale our students' skill levels. So we understand that the diploma maybe used to be the minimum credential for the workforce, but I think for the workforce of beyond, it's not. We want all of our students to graduate with a plan. That requires a lot of hand-holding and a lot of effort on our part in kind of deliberate planning to help kids be successful. So some of our kids do go to four-year colleges, and I guess evidence there. Snap this in Jordan Creek when I'm walking by and I see one of our former students featured on an Iowa State poster. So,
That wasn't a surprise.
it wasn't, but it was. I didn't know it was there, so that was a surprise to see it. So I, now that you have a phone, you can just take a little picture and make it happen. But, so that was a nice thing to see, our graduates being successful. But it, for a lot of our students ascending to college or going to a certificate program, they would be the first generation in their family to do that. And so there is some apprehension about knowing what to do and how to do it and how to make it happen and how to do it the right way. So we have really become pretty invested in helping everybody to leave high school with some kind of a plan to make that happen. And then walking them through the steps that we have control over to make sure that that plan happens as well. So, talked about this before. It's been a very successful tool in our arsenal to personalize learning, which is what we call the PLO, which is the primary, it's a personalized extended learning opportunity, generally packaged as a semester class. But it's the primary acquisition of knowledge and skills through instruction and study outside of traditional methodology. So time, hours, mode, pace, place, method are all flexible, but we do try to link these to career pathways and student interests. This has been around for several years now, and it's been especially helpful as we have moved into work-based learning with a lot more of a purpose and a higher intensity and focus. I can field some questions if you have any.
How do you gauge success? I assume it's graduation rate, right? Or is that not the gauge of success? And so how do you know we're doing a good job? And of the 100+ kids you got, how do we know we did it right?
So we have used a couple of metrics of success. Number of graduates is one thing. We will sometimes, though, get a senior who comes to us who's a 12th grader on paper, but they're not a 12th grader with credits. They might be in 12th grade and they've got 7 or 8 credits and it takes 22 to graduate. So we do keep track of how many credits does a student earn in our program, just as sort of a median ballpark number. We get some kids who are close to the finish line and we help them get over the top. We get some direct ascension 9th graders who are, Miller has told us, are probably more likely to find success with us than at the traditional high school. So we do monitor credit acquisition rates. In terms of graduates, in terms of raw numbers, there's been about 230, 240 graduates in our 11 years. So we've probably got about 18 to 22 kids in a graduation pipeline this year.
What percentage of those students would have graduated without an alternative type of school setting?
Ultimately, that's difficult to say, but most of the people who find their way to us were not successful in another setting. Either, sometimes that's in another district setting as well. So we think that most of the kids who graduate with us may not have made it if they haven't been with us. There are some exceptions to that, of course.
How about your overall numbers over time? You said you have 100 plus, I don't know what that means, but like if you went back 5 years ago, was it 40 or 50 kids and now you're at 100 and it's growing, or?
No, we've been at 100 students pretty consistently over the last 3 years. Over time, the program has gotten a little bigger.
Is that a function of the number of people in the budget you have versus, or is it a function of the need here in town is about 100 kids for your type of education?
I think it's probably a function of staffing and resources and space, and there's a lot of need, I think.
So you could, if you had more, you could have more kids.
It would, perhaps, but I think you could say that about any school, maybe, in that sense, so.
I think the numbers increased quite a bit a few years ago when we sat down and talked about the fact that for the most part, kids were falling into the program because they, as Eric alluded to, a lot of kids would come in maybe during or after their sophomore year and had hardly achieved anything, in the regular high school program. So we spent a lot of time talking about how do we better transition kids that we have a good feeling would be a good fit for this program from Miller to the program instead of them failing into it. How do we better accommodate what their learning needs are by identifying and getting buy-in from the student as well as the parent in order to do that. So I think numbers started to jump a little bit with that, and I think there's a pretty good balance now of kids that you have 9 through 12, and not that, again, the grade necessarily matters. What matters is how hard they want to work towards getting the credits. So.
And I don't know that we'll have anybody this year, but I know last year we had somebody that graduated in that 3-year window. Needed to get through high school in 3 years, and there's sometimes family and social reasons why kids want to do that or need to do that. It's certainly not what we want to recommend for people, but so you can accelerate, in our program as well too.
Well, I want to thank Eric and Nicole both for their efforts in our push for work-based learning experiences for kids. Eric had mentioned the meat cutting apprenticeship, which is with Fairway Stores, and we're hoping to be positioned to be one of the early adopters of that for a couple kids at a time. And he's put a lot of time, and Nicole has, into that as well, and trying to make sure we can offer everything we need to do to make that happen. And then we've also been having conversations with Kirkwood Community College on trying to get fire safety off the ground as well. It's not offered at MCC. They probably just don't have the capacity, or we're not large enough, but Kirkwood has it, so that's a program similar to criminal justice, which we offer at the high school. We hope we can have some kids explore and see if that might be a pathway of interest, with them eventually being able to be qualified pretty early on after high school and eligible to apply with the fire service. So.
Do you have a connection, or has anybody came to MLA to talk about job corps? I had fortunate to talk to somebody about that and saw a presentation and just thought of an opportunity for MLA. Do you guys refer to that? I mean, it's free education.
We do refer it to Job Corps. It has to be right for the student and the family. It's kind of a niche sort of an opportunity, I guess I would describe it as. But we do refer there. I don't know if anybody's gone this year. I know we had a handful of kids go last year. And that has its pros and cons as well, so.
Okay, but it's a conversation, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Reggie
As an
Curran, he's our
opportunity.
student resource specialist. He usually liaisons with, the guy's name is Drew, somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what I
So
saw.
I think that's what he talks about.
I would like to thank you for making a presentation that included reminding all of us what it is that you do, and to bring our new board members up to speed on an alternative program that we have here in the district as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the benefit of the new board members as well, we try to have a monthly, we call it curricular visit of about an hour. We had the one that got canceled the other day due to weather, I think, at Anson, but there'll be opportunities throughout the year to get in each of our attendance centers and see particular programs of emphasis, and the board has really asked that we focus on programs and activities that have a direct relationship to work that we've done here at the board table to help support and that sort of thing.
Ladies. For our new board members, we have 3 representatives from the high school who are student board reps for us and keep us abreast of things that are happening at the high school. They make a presentation at each board meeting.
All right, so the first thing we're going to be talking about is the holiday stroll. Several students around the community are volunteering. It's this Saturday, November 23rd from 4 to 8. A couple groups that are participating are choir, dance team, band, step, and several others. Next, we're going to be talking about sports. Basketball and wrestling had their first day of practice today. Tonight, there's the girls' basketball jamboree at the Roundhouse. And then bowling's first home meet is on the 26th, and swimming is on the 26th also. Here's an update on our dual credit courses. About 10 students are on track to get their AA degree, and about 10 to 13 students will have at least 1 year of college done when they graduate.
Awesome.
So, just last week, people from Georgia, the country, not the state, they came all the way from their country to MHS to go see how we do courses at the high school.
Dueling.
Yeah, from MCC. We had a student panel. I know that me and Mia were on it. And we answered questions that they may have had, and also explained about what we were in and how we were involved with, say, sports and also having college classes at the same time. Next, National Honor Society. We are planning on doing bell ringing for the holiday season. If enough students participate or sign up to do it, we will do it. It also counts for the required 8 volunteer opportunities that we must have in order to stay in NHS. And students are expected to participate. The Marshalltown Health Career Club had a food fundraiser. It was on Friday, and they set it up from 3:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. And all the funds go towards their trip to Rochester, Minnesota.
Do you know how they did?
I heard it was good.
So, something that just happened recently was the UNI Band Day, and just this Friday we had the amazing opportunity to go to the ISU Band Extravaganza because Mr. Eliza pushed for it, and it was an amazing experience. There's an upcoming orchestra concert, December 12th. And then, on November 8th, there was a Poetry Out Loud workshop where numerous students participated. And the whole purpose of Poetry Out Loud is to continue to support poetry and to not let it die, because poetry is something that should be out there more.
Questions for our student reps?
Are any of the 3 of you and the students listed for the dual credit courses, the 10 that are on track to get an AA, so you? Awesome, that's great. I think there was only 2 kids that did this last year, right? And so we've gone from 2 to 10. How great is that? So with a 2-year degree, and if you would go to a state school, you just save your parents $40,000. And for these 10 to 13 others with 1 year of college, they've just saved their parents $20,000. So congratulations to you guys for doing what you're doing and everybody for the expansion of this program. This is a real distinctive thing here in Marshalltown. And great job to report on.
Thank you.
So the next topic is school calendar for 2020, 2021. There are two calendar models that are before you. These are models that were vetted with the calendar committee within this past month, as well as with the administrative team when they are in draft form to talk about what works and what doesn't. So option one, which we could also call spring break option, pretty closely mirrors this year's calendar, with the exception of we've repurposed a professional development day to pre-service, so we have one more pre-service day and one less Monday professional development during the year in order to provide more time to take care of what needs to be taken care of at the district and building levels. But for the most part, this calendar mirrors this year's calendar. Spring break falls the 8th through the 12th, which is aligned with Marshalltown Community College and Iowa Valley Community College District. Once again, it does not align with the state regents universities, but we've chosen in the recent past to align with MCC for the very thing that Mike talked about, dual credit alignment, particularly for those classes that happen at MCC that students attend. Otherwise, there could be an awkwardness of 1 to 2 weeks, depending on what happens with when people take spring breaks and that sort of thing. This calendar would finish on, the last day for students would be Wednesday, June 3rd, and staff would be, or Thursday, June 3rd, Friday, June 4th would be the last day for staff, and there is one built-in snow makeup day, which will be May 17th. The option 2 calendar, which would not have spring break as we currently know it, but it has an extended break around the Easter weekend, would have a finishing date for students of May 28th, which has been a while since we were able to finish in May. That would be barring no snow days, of course. But for the most part, the calendar is similar in nature with the exception of not having that March week spring break, having an extension of Easter weekend with professional development on Thursday, Good Friday off, and then Monday and Tuesday off following Easter. So what I would propose would be that, as we did a couple years ago when we had a couple different models to look at, that we would put it out to our employees and put it out to our parents, give them a chance to weigh in through a survey in terms of where they prefer, simply for the purpose of giving administration and the board further insight for possible recommendation. The surveys won't be for the purpose of deciding which calendar we're going to go to, simply to provide input for the board to ultimately make their decision on which calendar they would prefer. And certainly I want to open it up if there's questions or comments relative to any of it. Number of professional development days, very similar to this past year. We've just moved them around a little bit, but they're still on Mondays for the most part. I'm trying to think if there's anything else of note. As far as excessive hours for students, I think we have built into this calendar the equivalent of about 8 days worth of extended time by hours beyond the minimum number of hours, which has tended as of late to be necessary in order to accommodate early outs, late starts. Last year, if you remember, we had lost probably 3 days worth of early outs, late starts. due to weather, and then 5 full days. We had the students make up 3 of those 5 days, and we're able to have a reasonable ending date, even though it was later than normal due to the weather. Students are based on hours, whereas employees are based on days, contract days. So,
can you just remind me what groups are represented on the calendar committee? Like administration, teachers?
Teachers.
Okay.
We've got a pretty good cross-section across the buildings. I don't think we try to get every single building represented, but most of them.
Are there any parents in it?
So I guess I'm looking for feedback. I don't know there's a lot of value in going out to survey parents again. I did that last year and it was pretty much 50-50. And I think similar with the teachers. I don't know that we're going to expect anything different this time with similar types of options. I don't know that we're going to set the precedent that every single year we're going to hold maybe on what type of calendar we want. It seems like we should kind of pick it, try to be a little consistent as much as possible year to year so people have predictability. I think the survey can create as much frustration as it does communication, especially since it's, I think, more likely than not to be relatively 50-50. We'll have to make the call the same way we would anyway. So I guess the decision was made after I'm gone, so you can ignore this for all you want. But I would suggest trying to have a measure of consistency year to year on the calendar if we think there's one that is working for us, which I think the spring break aligned with the community college makes sense.
Isn't that what we had last year, is the spring break that pretty much aligned? I know we had some discrepancies. One question I had was, if we do have snow days, do you take them out of spring break at all?
The only way you should or can do that is if you identify up front on the calendar that there's potential, but generally speaking, I don't know what kind of effect that has on people that would normally plan to be gone during that time if they just miss days.
Well, at least they would know. Because to me, it seems like it's the race to the last day of school. Like, how can we get there the quickest? And so if there's just a difference in the spring break.
Yeah, I think it could be really problematic with having enough staff to accommodate students if they pre-plan to go somewhere that requires flights and stuff like that. To Ben's comments, it's been 2 years since we surveyed people. If you remember last year, I just brought one calendar with spring break as we had the year before you had been asked to have at least a couple things to deliberate on. From what I recall, I believe our employees were about 48% in favor of retaining spring break, and our parents were about 52% in favor of keeping spring break. When we combined all those results, even though not everybody voted, it was a little bit heavier on the keep spring break end of it, which is kind of why we landed there 2 years ago and why I brought the calendar. But I would say, generally speaking, the noise relative to calendar concerns in the past has been more so about how late we end, which was a combination of 2 things. One is we end later naturally now that we have the state law requiring us not to start until the 23rd or after. And then the second has been just, we've had more weather days probably in the last couple of years than what we had a couple of years prior. But I'm comfortable with figuring out a way to recommend one of these 2 for you, I guess, if that's what you'd like, or if you...
I would, based on past practice, I would prefer to get a teacher input. It's pretty easy for teachers to reply to building principals and building principals to give you the option 1, option 2. I think that I would prefer to fall on the side of past practice for that.
With employees or just teachers?
Employees. I think it can be done pretty quickly.
Sure. Yeah, our intention was, if a survey was desired, to probably push it out tomorrow and then have people get back to us no later than Tuesday of next week. And then we'd be positioned to share those results at the December 2nd board meeting.
Okay.
The only other thing that's a little bit different is that with that late start date of the 23rd, a lot of times we gravitate towards starting school as quickly as we can. And if you notice on these calendars, we pushed it off a day with students till Tuesday, the 25th. And that was in large part a request of teachers and administrators in order to, number one, have a little bit shorter week, which I think the district was accustomed to before the state mandatory start date. Tuesday start was pretty typical in the past. And then it also provides ample opportunity to have on backpack nights for students, particularly at the elementary and intermediate levels, I think.
Okay. Paula?
So we recently asked the board for permission to refinance some existing sales tax revenue bonds that we have outstanding that actually are callable on January 1st of 2020. And our sale was final today, so we have a recommendation before you. There are 3 attachments there. The first one is the bidder list, and lots and lots of bidders were invited to participate in this process, including local banks. We did have 5 bidders that participated, and none of them were local. What you have in front of you, which is also attached, our recommendation would be to accept the proposal from JP Morgan for option A. This option provides the most savings for the district of about just under $267,000 over the remaining lifetime of this debt. The existing debt matures in 2028, and this debt would also mature in 2028. The current coupon on our outstanding debt is 2.92%. The proposal is at 1.84%. We use Piper Jaffray as a financial advisor. Matt Gillespie and I both looked through all of these this afternoon, and his recommendation was also to go with option A. The thing that's a little unique about this is that this is not callable, but we don't see that hindering the district's ability to issue any outstanding debt in the next few years. So our recommendation would be to accept the proposal from JP Morgan for option A.
Questions for Paula?
Paula, the final maturity of this one at 2028, is that the same final maturity as the existing?
Yep.
And so 1% interest savings, that's a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there more debt that we could do this for?
Our other, we just did refinance some right before I came. And then that existing debt is actually callable again on July 1st of 2023. So at that point, anytime debt becomes callable, we'll analyze, what the interest rates are and whether or not it would be financially feasible to do.
Other questions? May I have a motion to recommend the approval of the proposal from JP Morgan Chase Bank, option A, for the issuance of $7.329 million in refunding bonds, resulting in a savings of $266,023.49.
So moved.
Second.
Carter Miller, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The motion carries 6-0. Put away one stack and take out.
The next item is just our resolution fixing a date for a hearing on the proposed use of SAVE revenue for an athletic facility project under the new legislation that was passed this past session. Districts are required to have a public hearing when either debt is being issued or cash on hand is being used for proposed athletic facilities. So we would be setting the date for this hearing to be December 16th at 5 p.m.
Questions for Paula?
This is just a public hearing. This isn't actually saying, yep, we want to do this, yep, we're going to issue the debt to do it.
Correct.
This is just continuing to move the process forward, but we haven't said, yeah, we've seen the plans and specification, things going to cost this much, and we're voting yes to
Correct.
do anything.
We're just setting the public hearing for December 16th.
These are in addition to what you would normally have with a construction project due to that new law.
Is there any, what level of detail is necessary for that public hearing? What do we have to, what is the hearing for, I guess?
We have to, we have to publish that we're having the public hearing, and the public can comment on, at that time, we will have proposed plans, specs, and such.
Okay.
We can't have the hearing until we have those, so.
Okay, so we expect to have that prior to the 16th? Those
Actually,
plans?
that's, yeah. The construction, we'll have the construction one in January. We'll have the proposed plan specs at that time.
Okay.
This is just for the public hearing on the proposed athletic facility. So the public actually has an option to file a petition if they're against it, which would require a ballot referendum.
And I've gone back and forth a little bit. This seems to be a little bit early to be doing this, but I suppose it's because the way the law is written now, you have to start the clock so early because the process is so long to get through it.
Right, and we've kind of backed into it because if an election is required, we had to do it now to get it on the March ballot.
Okay.
And the other thing is that the most favorable time to be in a position to bid for a construction project for next summer would be January, February. So we're targeting possible February bid letting if everything were to move forward.
Okay.
May I have a motion to approve a resolution setting a public hearing for December 16th at 5 p.m. and authorizing the board secretary to publish notice of the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Heitman Carter, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The motion carries 6-0.
It's just for people in the audience to even mention that was for the tennis court. Tennis court. This is the infrastructure project we're talking about.
I think Rex is here.
Oh, there it is. Let's see this.
Hello, thank you, board. Back in October, we had our fall inspection, and as we move forward, all our small vehicles that carry students have to be inspected and pass inspection just like a regular school bus does. So come the spring, every one of our vehicles, all our small vehicles have to be inspected as if they're going to carry students in any way, to bike bins, to job shadowing or whatever. This fall one, we have the Uplander looked at because we just wanted to see how some of our older vehicles would happen. And the Uplander did not do so well. It had 22 sensors on it that were showing defaults, and we have until this Friday to get those fixed. And as the guys got into it and we started looking at the nickel and diming of replacing the sensors and fixing all the list of things that they said, the anti-brake system, the traction control system, there's like 22 different items that the sensors were out on. And it was going to end up being $2,000 to $3,000. So we started having discussion about looking at replacing the Uplander, and with a different vehicle. We went out and got bids from the 3 dealers here in town. And our recommendation would be to purchase the 2018 Chrysler Pacifica for, that has 12,000 miles on it, and $25,675. We would put that into service to take our student to up to Cedar Falls every day. We would put that in there and then take the vehicle that because we put on 40-some thousand miles a year on the vehicle that goes to Cedar Falls, and take the one we got going there now and put it into service where we have that blender put into service.
And the Uplander is out of service now?
Yeah, it's not being used.
Okay.
And so, we're using this vehicle to go to Cedar Falls every day?
The one that we would, the Uplander, if we purchase one of these, that's when we would put in place to go to Cedar Falls.
And I'm sorry, tell me why we're going to Cedar Falls?
We have a student enrolled with them for a program.
Other questions?
Do you guys purchase a warranty program then with that, or how does that work?
Yeah, there's warranty on it.
Other questions? I have a motion to purchase 2018 Chrysler Pacifica from Dave Wright Auto in the amount of $25,675.
So move for approval.
Miller Hernandez, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
Thank you.
Moving on to board policies.
The first policy, 402.6, regulation on staff technology use. You saw actually 2 meetings ago. That's initial review, and then we just dropped the ball on not bringing it back. But in the meantime, we made a couple other adjustments to what you'd seen. So I will recommend that this come back for a second reading on December 2nd. The 2 change, as you may recall from the previous discussion, a lot of this policy was highly recommended by our auditors in order to protect confidential information as far as the computer usage was concerned with our student management system and other things. So we toned down the language a little bit as it related to noncompliance and discipline. And then we also looked to better clarify what unintended computer meant. It doesn't mean that you leave it, you leave your desk where your computer is sitting to work with students in the classroom. It means leaving the room entirely, for an extended period of time or something like that. So again, we would recommend that come back for a second reading since we
It needs to come back as a first reading because you've made changes in it. It comes back as a second reading when there are no changes.
Okay.
So it will need to, 402.6R will need to come back as a first reading.
3 other policies that were before you at the last meeting: 606.3, personal animals in the school; 902.3, news releases; and 902.4, releases to news media board matters. We have not made any adjustments beyond what you saw when Mike presented a couple of those and I presented the other ones. So.
Okay. We'll need to do them in 2 motions because 606.3 is an adoption and the other 2 are amendments. May I have a motion to adopt policy 606.3, personal animals in the school?
Second.
one?
Two.
Okay, good. Heitman, Fletcher, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries 6-0. Now 9023 and 9024. May I have a motion to amend those two policies?
So moved.
Second reading.
Pardon me?
Waive the future readings.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
That's what you seconded?
Miller, Hernandez. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The motion carries 6-0 to waive the second reading, and also on 603, 606.3. Got that?
Yep.
Okey dokey.
Policy 508.2 on open night, or in the past it was called church night, I believe. We did not have a board policy, at least within the policies related to students and students' activities designation of this particular night. I think it exists in student handbooks and such. And so based on some questions that were raised recently as to why we didn't have it in policy and not having a good answer for that, I would ask them that we put it in policy.
It'll need to come back at the next meeting as a first reading. Are there any questions for Dr. Schutte at this time?
Is this an IASB thing?
Well, the framework of the policy is, but it's a pretty common practice to have an open night where, to accommodate, a lot of times it's church activities and such. In this community, there was agreement amongst the ministerial association that this day and time would be designated as free from student activities after 6:30.
It's in practice.
It is. Other questions?
For policy 102.1, am I using this? Annual notice of non-discrimination only has changes to remove Anthony's name and replace it with Nora, both in the name, the middle of the paragraph, and then in the email. So it can be, I don't know.
So you're marking as reviewed, okay?
For policy board proceedings, 902.6 will be deleted.
Is there a redundant, is it somewhere else?
Yeah, in the 200s,
Okay.
which are on board procedures.
I have a motion to delete.
So moved.
Can we do that?
We can do it if it's a redundant policy. It can come back if you would
No,
prefer.
I'm fine with it. No, just checking.
Is there a wish that it come back?
I don't need it to, I just think I would have to. It doesn't have to.
No, it doesn't have to.
I will move that it be deleted.
Fletcher, seconded by
I'll second.
Heitman. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. 902.6 board proceedings has been deleted because of redundancy. 903.3, Karina?
Building visitors will be changed to visitors to building district, visitors to school district buildings and sites. 2 paragraphs were added at the beginning and 2 at the end. So this comes back.
Okay. Questions for Karina at this time? Okey-dokey.
All right. So Iowa code requires the board treasurer to furnish the annual settlement with the outgoing board. And we need to do this after August 31st and prior to the organizational meeting. So what you see before you is the depository balances as of June 30th, 2019, the close of last fiscal year. This is where the district's money is at. And these balances are audited and confirmed with our auditing firm, so this is your annual settlement.
Questions for Paulette? May I have a motion to accept the balances as presented?
So moved.
Carter Hernandez, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The motion carries 6-0. We have the appointments that need to be, our annual appointments that need to be made. Unless there is objection to any of them, we can do them all together as one motion. If there is a question on any of them, we'll need to remove it and vote on them separately. The first appointment would be to approve Paulette Newbold as board secretary and board treasurer. To appoint Bradshaw Fowler, Proctor, and Fairgrave as school attorney. And to approve Allers and Cooney as additional legal counsel. Are there any questions? Would you like any of them separated?
Need a motion?
I do need a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Miller Fletcher, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The motion carries 6-0. Back to you, Paula.
We have before you our depository resolution that we do annually. The only difference that you're going to see this time around is that we used to use Bankers Trust for our corporate trust debt issuances and such, and they were purchased by UMB Bank in March, so that's the only difference.
May I have a motion to approve the depository resolution as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Carter Heitman, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The motion carries 6-0. Just waiting for you to catch up.
Yep. All right, so we actually have two abstractive votes that we have attached here. One is for our public measure C, which was the renewal and extension of the revenue purpose statement, extending the ability to borrow against that revenue until 2051. And that passed with, it was about 77%, wasn't it? 2,249 votes in favor of, 675 votes against, so. And then for our school board election, we had Jan McGinnis received 1,745 votes, Sean Heitman received 1,880 votes, Robert Unti received 1,555 votes. Nico Aguirre received 1,544 votes. Sarah Faltas received 1,786 votes, and there was a scattering for 52 votes. So we have 4 board members elected for the next 4-year term. Jan McGinnis, Sean Heitman, Robert Unteith, and Sarah Faltas.
Good job.
Is there any item of note, Mr. Sodders, on communication?
I have a little, I did just release one tonight that was really interesting, and you should all definitely read it when we're all done here. Had to do with a taste test that MHS students did between, they were comparing store brands
Using the microphone.
versus name brands, I'm sorry. versus name grants, I'll be used to this. So that will be interesting. Unfortunately, it just came out, so I didn't have time to include it here. But the Times Republican did some coverage of, or preview of our Little Mermaid, the production of that. The teacher spotlight for Christine Gilbertson. School board, the news about how we're going forward with the tennis courts, and the SAVE measure that Paulette just referred to. And then just the few stories I've been able to push out since coming on a week ago. A lot of those were mentioned by our student representatives, and the cardigans photo, which was very cute and very fun to go see. So I've smiled every day on the job so far because I see something that's great every day. So I'm really happy about that.
We're happy you're happy.
Thank you. But that is it for me right now. I will bring more next time.
Okay.
Welcome, Adam.
Thank you.
Looking at reminders, I have the fortunate opportunity to do policies. Equity committee meeting coming up on the 19th. Internal communications this Friday. There is no school showcase for our next meeting on December 2nd. Committee reports. MBE.
The MBA met last week, and we had a presentation from Kathy Liggett, she's from Future Ready Iowa. She's a policy advisor for that, and so she gave a great overview to those in attendance, and we had a pretty good crowd. We had some additional invitees representing other local businesses and industries that we're partnered with, so we've been expanding the membership to better align with how we've been partnering and what we're hoping to do in terms of building out work-based learning experiences, which was part of her focus to talk about the governor and the legislature's and business and industries' desire to create more of these partnerships and opportunities for kids to explore and experience work-based learning. And then we continue to have some conversations about some potential subcommittee work within MBA, in addition to the quarterly meetings, and some of the areas to focus would be reassessing local businesses on what their needs are as it relates to the workforce. Very much we need to stay focused, I believe, on the work-based learning experiences that we're trying to build out for kids. Eric talked and Nicole talked about a number of those opportunities as well. And I'm trying to remember what the third component of that was in terms of potential focus area.
Community, parent, student activities.
Oh, yeah. One of the things that we talked about, because we do have so much going on within the district and in partnering, is trying to capture all of those activities and try to see if there's gaps that could be filled in with other types of events or activities to bring attention to, once again, local businesses and industries and their needs in terms of high-quality employees, and to get parents as well as the students thinking about whether or not some of these opportunities are viable opportunities for their futures, and trying to break some of the misconceptions related to advanced manufacturing or agriculture or middle skilled jobs or skilled trades jobs, because they've changed a lot, both in what's required of that work in terms of knowledge, skills, aptitudes, but also in what they pay. And I think there's some lack of knowledge and understanding of how good paying many of those jobs are today.
Can some of that go into like the externship type education?
For our teachers,
But I mean, like kind of similar to that.
that could be a possibility, yeah. Yep. There definitely has been discussion about trying to get events to get people into those businesses, parents and community members. Anything I missed?
No. Anything else from finance that we haven't already talked about?
We did have a finance meeting. We discussed the insurance. Yeah, property casualty, because we do have a decision deadline in January. And we had partial information for that, so it was really, that's all we did, was discuss what we had. Anything else?
No. And we have, I think it's 5 people from the board that are going to Wednesday and Thursday school board convention, which we're excited for. They've made, especially with the first time with November elections, a big part of that focus is the new board member orientation, so that'll be one of the pre-service sessions that our new board members will attend. And then it's always been highly advantageous to learn about school finance, with them offering 3 different levels of school finance. And for the new board members, I think most of our board members will tell you it probably takes about 3 years to kind of fully wrap your head around school finance, just because of the differences that exist with what we can or can't do and the different pots of money or funds that we have available to us that are for specific purposes.
And for those individuals going to the convention, please remember that you get to give your little synopsis when you come back. We'll let the tenured folks, Lisa, Dr. Schutte, Paulette, and Sean, give their reports at the first December meeting, and then we'll have our new members give their report when they've seen what it's like from these individuals at the 2nd December. We just asked for a short summation of what you learned so that the rest of the people can benefit from that as well.
Fairly informal reflection.
What have we done tonight to improve the education for Marshalltown Community School District students?
So I'll go back to what I said earlier to our student representatives. The report that they gave about the number of kids taking college credits and the number of college credits they're taking. So I tried to do the math in the meantime. Those students are saving themselves or their parents in total over $500,000 in college education by taking those credits. And so our district offering those kind of opportunities is saving them and their families over $500,000. That's a big deal for them, and I appreciate them taking advantage of it. That should be a story of them.
We save some more money in refinancing of bonds.
I think we heard a great overview of how MLA provides a different type of personalized learning experience for students that maybe don't always perfectly fit the traditional schooling model. And they've also been doing a lot of pioneering work for us in the realm of work-based learning as well.
Are there any items for future agendas? You still have yours, Mike?
And I talked to Eric about that, so hopefully we can have that in the summer.
Well, it's time to adjourn the old board. May I have a motion for adjournment of the retiring board?
Second?
Fletcher Carter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The motion carries 6-0. Do you want to take a break before we'll take a quick break before we start the organizational meeting of the new board.
Why are you assuming that all parents?
I said either them or their parents. Initially, I said parents, and then I wanted to correct myself at the end, so I said either them or their parents.
You're in charge.
I'd like to call the organizational meeting on November 18th, 2019 of the new board to order at 6:30 p.m. And we'll start with a roll call. Faltis? Here. Heitman?
Here.
Hernandez?
Here.
McGinnis?
Here.
Miller?
Here.
Niblock?
Here.
Unti?
Here.
All right. We'll have all the new board members come forward.
Just in
Yeah, just-
between the two rows of
You can
tables.
stand up here and we'll
We're
give
gonna
you,
swear you in.
yes, this is where all the swearing happens. And we have some certificates and some information from the state, or the auditor's office. Sarah. Sean. And Jan. All right. And I'll swear everyone in. I'll just say it once and then you can individually respond. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of School Board Director in Marshalltown Community School District, as now or hereafter required by law?
I do.
I do.
You're all married to the board. Take an empty chair.
Get a seat now.
All right, I'll take them up on you.
You sure about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's a good one because you're off camera.
Oh.
That's perfect. That's not a bad haircut.
Why do you gotta let them in on the secret?
That's the best seat for that. Those are the worst seats because they're always.
Oh, they're always focused on, yeah. But that's in Karina's concept, kind of go like this, the cameras are always focused on.
Gotcha. So I brought beat to not move.
Welcome. All right, the next order of business. Next order of business on the agenda is to elect a president for the upcoming year. And so we will open up and accept nominations for board president.
I move to nominate B. Niblock as board president.
Second.
Hearing no additional nominations, I will call for a vote and we can do a unanimous vote for one candidate. All in favor of electing B. Niblock for board president?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Here we are. Congratulations. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of School Board President in Marshalltown Community School District, as now or hereafter required by law? I'd gladly turn it back over to you.
And we move to the election of vice president. Nominations are open for vice president of the board.
I'd like to nominate Sean Heitman as vice president of the board.
It's been moved and seconded that Sean Heitman be the vice president of the board. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. A unanimous ballot is cast for Sean.
Congratulations.
You've sworn a lot tonight. solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Vice President in the Marshalltown Community School District as now or hereafter required by law.
I will. Thank you.
You have in your agenda, and you can look at it at home if you don't have it open at this particular point, a list of school board committees. Look through the list of committees. Each of you will be on a minimum of 3 committees. Is the mouse on, Jan?
The light's on.
There we go. You can look at that list. Those are the list of the individuals who are on them. He had up there just a minute ago the committees and their descriptions as to what each committee is required to do. There are 2 committees that are not listed on there, so there will be even more committees than the ones that you see there, the 16 or so that you see. One is Health and Wellness, and that is chaired by Lynn Large, the Director of Food Service. And according to board policy, that is a committee, as well as required by the state of Iowa. And the other committee that is not listed is a Teacher Quality Committee, which is chaired by Dr. Stevenson, and it looks at the professional development and ways that staff members are trained and subsequently paid in this district. So what I need from you as board members is a list of 5 committees that you would like to serve on. And you can give that to me in a note, or you can send it to me email using the school email address. And I would need that by before Thanksgiving. Because then I can go through and I guarantee you that you'll get some of your first 3. But beyond that, I don't know. Sometimes you get your top 3 right off the bat, sometimes not. Kind of depends on what you are interested in. And if current board members want to remain on the committees that they have, Sean will have some other responsibilities now, so his committees will automatically change. But if Mike and Karina want to serve on the same ones that you're on now, just drop me an email that says, keep me on the same ones.
Just for further clarification, the teacher quality meeting typically meets twice a year. Mike has, I think, been on that. There's a fall meeting and a spring meeting. And then the Health and Wellness Committee, I think, historically, it's met 2 to 3 times a year. I know Lynn's desire is for it to have regular quarterly meetings, and a lot of their work evolves around the Healthy Kids Act and kind of monitoring to make sure we're implementing what we're supposed to be implementing related to that policy and the regulations associated with it.
So if you have questions about any of those committees, please ask. Do you, Dr. Nora?
Just that our, the equity committee that's listed as number 12 there, we have a meeting tomorrow at 4 p.m. here in central office, if anyone wanted to jump right in. 4 o'clock.
Well, you may or may not have Karina there, but you won't have any other board members yet.
Oh,
I'm glad to be here.
Okay, you will have Karina there.
excellent, thanks.
The next item on the agenda is the reminders. Those are the listings of individuals going to IASB convention. We've already talked about that a little bit, and a reminder that you'll have a 3 to 5 minute presentation on the highlights of the things that you saw and learned at IASB. Things start, things end. The end of one thing leads to the beginning of another. We'll miss our old friends and colleagues who are no longer on the board. And we welcome our new folks to the table. My quote for this evening is from the Roman philosopher Seneca. I talked to him a number of times.
We're not gonna go there.
Yeah. He said, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. So welcome to those of you who are beginning with us, and thank you for those of you who are ending with us. Oh, yippee. Dr. Schutte is going to talk to you about your reading assignment.
So we're going to start things off with a book study, starting with the next meeting. The returning board members have done a book study with this book back in 1718, actually, I think it was. There's
A year before that, even. Because we did two, we've done poverty and we did the ELC one. So it's been a while.
So this is, it's called How Not to Be a Terrible School Board Member. And it's actually a very easy and entertaining read. And so we're going to go ahead and distribute that to you guys. And then I will push out probably tomorrow, kind of like our administrators, the last time we did this, also the cabinet administrators at the district level also participated. So we'll see to it that those new since that time get a book, and those that have books will look to find theirs. And basically we just assign, there's like 7 scenarios in each section. So between now and December 2nd, I think there's 35 pages of reading, but it does go relatively quick, and I'll push out assignments. So like you might have 1 or 2 of the scenarios to just speak about and get the discussion going in terms of what the gist of the message was. It's all based on like case scenario situations, so it's kind of a fun read versus reading the technical manual on how to work.
Any other items for the good of the order before we adjourn? I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Heitman Miller, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The motion carries 6-0. We are adjourned.
We need a quick